Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tales, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now, let's get into today's tale. My husband's family told me they were planning a surprise party. Instead, they lured me to a lawyer's office where I was served with a prenup amendment stripping me of all rights. "It's just a formality," his mother said. "You'll sign if you truly love him." I looked at my husband, who said, "If you say no, we're over." I pretended to agree, took the paper home, and when I researched the clause they tried to hide, I discovered I never imagined I'd be the kind of person telling the internet about how I got revenge on an entire family. But here we are. I'm 34, live in Charleston, South Carolina, and I'm a nurse. I worked hard to get where I am. No handouts, no shortcuts, just long shifts, student loans, and pushing through. That's why this hit so hard, because I thought I married someone who respected that. My husband's name is Jared. He's 38. When I met him 3 years ago, I thought I hit gold. He was charming, polite, funny in that dry kind of way, and came from a family with money. I mean, old Southern money, estates, golf memberships. My grandfather was a judge-type money. At first, I was nervous around them. His mom, Sylvia, and his dad, Marcus, had a way of talking down to people without sounding mean. His sister, Lauren, she had that fake sweet thing going on, but you could feel the judgment under every compliment. I felt like an outsider right away. But Jared kept telling me not to worry, that they were like that with everyone. I tried hard to be polite, to fit in. I let comments slide, like when Sylvia said, "It's lovely how you've made something of yourself with so little." Or when Lauren said, "It's sweet that you still shop at Target. It keeps you humble." Jared would just chuckle. That's just how they are. But then came the prenup. Before we got married, his parents pushed hard for it. Jared said it was just standard. I was skeptical, but the terms were pretty neutral. Separate assets stayed separate. Anything we built together was joint. I had nothing to hide. I signed it. I never thought they'd try to rewrite it behind my back. A year into the marriage, I passed my nursing certification, something I worked my ass off for. Jared told me his family wanted to throw a small party to celebrate. He said they booked a spot near King Street, had everything planned, and I should dress nice. I was surprised. They'd never celebrated anything about me before, but maybe, I thought, this was their way of finally accepting me. He even said, "They want to do something special for you." That morning, he left early, said he had to help with the setup. He texted me the address. I called an Uber, wore a simple but classy dress, and showed up at an office building. Not a restaurant, not a venue, just a law office with his family name on a brass plaque out front. My stomach dropped. As I stood outside, looking confused, Jared walked out with Sylvia and Lauren behind him, all smiling like nothing was weird. "Come on in," Sylvia said. "Just a quick stop first." I followed them in, completely confused. They walked me into a lawyer's office. The guy introduced himself as Mr. Lyles. No decorations, no cake, no party, just legal files on the table. Sylvia handed me a thick envelope. "This is just a little amendment to the prenup," she said. "Nothing dramatic. It just clarifies things. For the estate." Then she said the line that made my blood turn cold. "You'll sign it if you truly love him." Jared stood beside her, silent. I stared at the paperwork. "What is this?" Jared finally spoke. "It's for the family. Just some asset protections. Sign it and we can move on." I looked at him, searching for some sign this was a joke, but no, stone-faced. Then he said, "If you say no, we're over." Just like that. No emotion, no hesitation. Nodded slowly. I said I wanted to read it over at home before signing. Sylvia looked irritated, but didn't argue. Jared just said, "Fine." I took it home, and that's when everything changed. I stayed up all night reading. It was over 20 pages, full of legal talk and vague clauses. But one part stood out. If I left the marriage for any reason, I would lose all rights to any joint property. That included our home, our accounts, and anything that was in his name. even if we paid for it together. Another clause said that if we divorced, I'd have to move out of our home in less than 2 weeks, with no legal right to anything inside it. They wanted me gone, quietly, legally erased. I found out the lawyer was a family contact, the same guy who handled their estate. This wasn't random. This was planned. The worst part? Jared said nothing. No apology, no explanation, just sign it or we're done. He was going to let them throw me out like trash. That's when I knew I was done playing nice. I called my friend Kara from nursing school. Her husband is a lawyer, not just any lawyer. He specializes in estate law. He introduced me to someone even better, a woman named Clara Cahill, sharp as hell and cold where it counts. I met with her and showed her the papers. She read them in silence, then looked up and said, "This isn't just shady. This is an ambush." She told me not to sign, not even touch a pen, and not to confront them yet. She helped me start collecting proof. I had texts from Jared saying, "Don't overthink the prenup thing." I had messages from Sylvia saying, "You'll understand soon why we're doing this." It was all vague but useful. Then I got smart. I offered to meet with Jared alone, just the two of us. Said I'd sign if we could talk about it first. He took the bait. We met at a small bar near the waterfront. I acted soft, unsure. I apologized for making a scene. I told him I just wanted our marriage to work. He relaxed immediately, bought me wine, told me he knew I'd come around. He said, "You'll sign tomorrow?" I nodded at the house. Just us. He agreed. But I wasn't going to sign anything. The next day I was ready. Clara helped me draw up a document of my own, a statement of refusal and a legal notice that I believed I was being pressured under duress. I also had Natalie, a friend of mine who used to work in a law office, hide in the next room, recording the whole thing. Jared came in, acting calm, sat across from me. I laid the paperwork in front of him. He smiled. "See, this wasn't so hard." I played dumb, asked, "What does this part mean?" and pointed to the worst clause. He said, "That's just legal language. It won't affect you unless you're thinking of leaving me." I said, "Nothing." Then I stood up and came back with Clara's paperwork, dropped it on the table. "What's this?" he asked. "My terms." He frowned. "This isn't funny." Then Natalie walked in holding her phone. He went pale, smile. She said, "You just admitted you were hiding things from your wife." He stood up fast, started shouting. I told him calmly, "You tried to corner me. You lost." He stormed out, slammed the door, and that was just the beginning. After Jared stormed out, I didn't hear from him for 2 days. No calls, no texts. I wasn't surprised. I figured he was licking his wounds, probably crying to Sylvia about how I tricked him, but I wasn't sitting still. Clara and I were already steps ahead. She filed a restraining order request. Not because Jared hit me, he never laid a hand on me, but because of what we knew he'd try next. Pressure, sneaky visits, emotional blackmail. We wanted to block it before it started. I also started moving my personal belongings into a storage unit. Things that were mine before the marriage, photo albums, clothes, jewelry from my mom. I didn't trust him not to do something shady if things got ugly. And they did. 3 days after the dining room blow-up, I came home from work to find a moving truck parked outside my house. Our house. Jared was on the porch with 2 strangers. I didn't recognize the movers, but they had a clipboard and were walking toward the door. "What the hell is going on?" I asked, walking up fast. Jared turned, calm, too calm. "I'm reclaiming what's mine," he said. "You had your chance." I laughed loud. "You're moving me out without a court order?" "No," he said. "I'm moving myself back in. You can go stay with your little lawyer." I stepped right up to him. "This house is in both our names. You do this, and it's trespassing." He didn't move. "You're not going to win. You're dragging this out." Then he made a mistake. He waved his phone in my face. I had the signed deed transfer from my dad's lawyer. This house was always going to be mine. The movers hesitated. That was enough. I called the police. While we waited, Jared tried sweet-talking the movers into going ahead, but they refused. When the officer arrived, I handed over the deed, copy, showing both names, and told him I was in the middle of a legal case. Jared tried to interrupt. The cop shut him down fast. Officer said, "If this is a civil matter, then it goes through the courts. You don't get to kick someone out without a judge." Jared stared at me, jaw tight, like he was trying not to explode. He had to pack up and leave. I watched him get in his car and slam the door so hard the window shook, but I wasn't done. 2 days later, I got a call from a woman named Vivian. She introduced herself as Marcus's secretary, Jared's dad. She asked if I had a few minutes to talk. I wasn't sure at first, but something about her tone felt different. She told me she'd worked for Marcus for 20 years, said she'd seen a lot go down, but this time it didn't sit right. Then she dropped something huge. Jared's father rewrote his will last year. Quietly, the estate would have gone half to Jared and half to Charity, unless he was still married. If he was married, his wife had to sign off before anything could be touched. "What?" I asked. "That's why they're trying to get rid of you," she said. "You're a legal block, and you didn't even know." I just sat there, stunned. So it wasn't just about Jared wanting me out. It was about the whole family making sure their money went the way they wanted, not the way the will said. If I stayed, married, and didn't sign off, Jared wouldn't see a dime. But if I signed that amendment and they divorced me quietly, everything would be theirs. They never planned to keep me around. I was just a legal problem to solve. Now they were the ones with the problem because I wasn't leaving quietly. That's when I got an idea. A petty, mean, brilliant idea. Jared didn't know I'd spoken to Vivian. He didn't know I had the truth, so I made a plan with Clara. We waited 2 weeks. Then I texted him, "I've had time to think. Can we talk?" He replied within 5 minutes. We met at a quiet restaurant outside town. I wore something simple, no makeup, looked tired on purpose. He smiled when he saw me. "You look better." I nodded, said, "I hate fighting." He ordered wine. I pretended to sip. Then I leaned forward. "What if I signed the amendment, but only if we start over? Fresh, like pretend none of this happened." He looked at me like I just handed him a check for $1 million. "I knew you'd come around," he said. He reached for my hand. I let him hold it. We talked for an hour. He started getting cocky, said things like, "You'll see how much easier things are when you stop overthinking everything." I smiled, played along. At the end of the dinner, he asked, "Do you want to come back to my place?" I said, "No, I'm not there yet." I told him, but what I really meant was, "I'm 10 steps ahead, and you don't even see it." Because while we were at dinner, Clara filed an official discovery request to Marcus's estate lawyer. And what we got back changed everything. The discovery documents came back within days. Clara had warned me not to get my hopes up. "Rich families know how to bury things," she said. But what we got wasn't buried at all. It was laid out plain as day. Marcus's will had a very specific clause. In the event that Jared is married at the time of my death, his spouse must consent to the full transfer of any trust distributions, real estate deeds, or investment holdings. No transfer shall proceed without her notarized approval. This is to ensure fairness and prevent misuse of family assets. Fairness from Marcus? That part shocked me. Turns out Marcus didn't fully trust Jared either. Clara leaned back in her chair and looked at me. "This makes you the gatekeeper." I stared at the line again. I couldn't believe it. That prenup amendment they tried to trick me into signing? It wasn't just about kicking me out. It was designed to nullify my ability to block the inheritance. Once I signed and they filed for divorce, Jared would get everything, and I'd be legally gagged from interfering. Clara kept reading. Then she found the kicker. Marcus was dying. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. Quietly diagnosed 6 months ago. Not public knowledge yet. His lawyer had included a confidential hospice care directive that listed round-the-clock treatment at the family estate. And suddenly, everything made sense. They weren't just racing to get me out of the way. They were racing against the clock. If Marcus died while I was still married to Jared and hadn't signed anything, then I would hold the keys to millions. They couldn't risk that. They were trying to beat the clock and bury me before the clock ran out. Now I had leverage, but I wasn't. Done. I got a message on Facebook from someone I didn't recognize. Name was Valerie. She said she used to be engaged to Jared, broke off the engagement 3 years before I met him. She wrote, "I heard about what's happening. Sylvia tried to push me out too, said I wasn't polished enough when I hesitated to sign. Their prenup, she made up lies about me cheating. Jared believed her. He left me a week before our wedding. I asked if she'd be willing to talk more. She agreed. We met for coffee in Mount Pleasant. Valerie was kind, soft-spoken, and still a little shaken from what she'd gone through. She said Sylvia had been obsessed with protecting the family line, her exact words, and always talked about keeping the estate clean from outsiders. Valerie was a high school art teacher. Not flashy, not rich. Sounded familiar. She thinks wives are temporary, Valerie told me. Just someone to carry the next heir. That's it. She offered to write a statement. Swear she'd testify if needed. You're the first one who fought back, she said. I thanked her, then went to Clara. We now had proof of the coercive prenup ambush. Audio of Jared admitting things, surveillance footage from the lawyer's office, a clause in the will giving me legal say, a former fiancé with a pattern of family manipulation, and now a dying man whose entire empire was frozen unless I said yes. Clara looked at all of it and said, "We're going to turn this whole thing upside down." But there was one thing left I needed to know. Did Marcus know? Did he know they were trying to erase his own clause? Did he know they were rushing behind his back while he was dying? I wasn't sure, but I was going to find out. I called Vivian, Marcus's secretary, and asked for a favor. I want to see him, I said. Not with his wife, not with the rest of them around. Just me, she hesitated. That could get messy. I don't care, I said. She called me the next morning. Said Marcus would be alone for an hour that afternoon. I drove straight there. The family estate sat just past a stretch of woods near the Cooper River. Gated, private, all stone and brick and money. Vivian met me at the side entrance. Marcus was in a study off the main hall, weak, pale but alert, sitting in a recliner by a window, with a blanket on his legs and a glass of whiskey beside him. He looked surprised when I walked in. I wasn't told you were coming, he said, voice low but clear. I asked to speak to you without your family around, I said, because this concerns your legacy. He motioned to the chair across from him. Say what you came to say. So I laid it all out, the trap at the lawyer's office, the hidden clauses, the threat from Jared, the attempted lockout, the push to get my signature before anything happened to Marcus. I watched his face carefully. He didn't react at first, just stared out the window. Then he finally said, I warned them. Told Jared to let the marriage be. You knew I knew? My son was impulsive. We willed. I wrote the clause to protect what I built. I didn't expect him to use it as a weapon. I leaned forward then. Help me stop this. Say it out loud. Say they're manipulating your wishes. He looked at me for a long time. Then, to my shock, he nodded. I'll make a statement, he said, and I'll have it notarized today. And just like that, everything shifted. Marcus kept his word. That same day, with Vivian's help, he had a local notary come to the house. He recorded a full, clear video statement confirming that the clause in his will was intentional, and that under no circumstances was it to be bypassed or altered without the full consent of his son's legal spouse, me. He named names. He said Sylvia, Jared, and Lauren had shown repeated disregard for his legal directives and warned that if they continued to push behind his back, they would be cut out entirely from his personal inheritance. That included 3 properties, 2 offshore accounts, and a hefty life insurance policy that up until that moment was set to be split among them. Vivian sent me a copy. Clara and I filed it with the court immediately. It was game over. Sylvia called me the next morning, screaming, not yelling, screaming like a banshee with pearls. How dare you go behind our backs? How dare you manipulate a dying man? I let her rant. Then I calmly said, I didn't manipulate him. I respected his wishes. something you and your son clearly never planned to do. Then I hung up. Jared showed up to my house later that day. I had the camera rolling before I even opened the door. He was crying. I mean, full crocodile tears. His shirt was wrinkled, and he looked like he hadn't shaved in days. "Please," he said. "We don't have to do this like enemies." I didn't say anything. "I messed up," he went on. "I was scared. My mom pushed me. I didn't want to lose the house. I didn't want to lose you." I stared at him for a long time. Then I said, "You didn't want to lose control of me." He stopped crying. The mask slipped. "I'm not going to be poor because you suddenly think you're smarter than everyone," he said. And there it was. The truth finally out loud. "I already am smarter than everyone in your family," I said. "And thanks to your father's statement, your name's not even on the future anymore." He lunged forward like he was going to force his way in, but I slammed the door and called the cops again. Another incident, another report, another nail in his legal coffin, And Marcus passed away 2 weeks later, quietly in his sleep. I was the only person outside of Vivian and the hospice nurse who knew the full scope of his final legal revisions. Because in the days before he died, Marcus added one last addendum to his estate. In light of recent behavior, my son Jared, my wife Sylvia, and my daughter Lauren are to be fully removed from any personal inheritance, with the exception of family heirlooms. All other funds and properties are to be held in trust. For the person who defended my wishes, honored the integrity of my name, and showed character when others did not. My daughter-in-law Nina's full name. When it was read aloud, Sylvia fainted. No lie, hit the floor. Lauren screamed and threw her handbag across the room. Jared tried to walk out, but not before the estate attorney handed him a final document. Marcus had also withdrawn his name from several family businesses. He was now not just broke, he was a broke man with a reputation problem. And me? I inherited 3 homes, a large cash trust, and full voting rights on the family foundation board, which Jared used to run. I also got a letter from Marcus, handwritten. He said he wished things had gone differently, that I was the first person in years who didn't kiss up or back down. It ended with, "Take care of what I built. Let it finally belong to someone who earned it." I cried when I read that part, not because I loved Marcus, but because even in the mess of it all, someone finally saw me. Sylvia and Lauren tried to challenge the will. The court shut them down publicly. Their names are now part of court records that show attempts to manipulate a dying man. They've been blackballed from every club they used to run. Heard Sylvia tried to join a private club on Sullivan's Island and was escorted out when the staff recognized her name. Lauren lost her job at a boutique real estate firm when one of her clients brought up the inheritance scandal. Jared, he moved. To Georgia last I heard. Started working at some middle-tier brokerage. No clients. No network. He sent me an email a few months ago. One line. "You ruined my life." I didn't reply. I forwarded it to Clara just in case. And me? I sold 2 of the houses, kept the beach property for myself. I still work part-time as a nurse. Not because I have to, but because I want to. It reminds me who I really am, what I came from. Every morning, I drink my coffee on the back deck, looking at the water, and I think about how close I came to losing everything because I trusted the wrong people. They thought they could corner me, threaten me, scare me. But they forgot. I wasn't raised soft, and when you back someone into a corner who has nothing left to lose, you better pray they don't learn how to fight. Because if they do, you lose everything.